Catholic News Roundup. I'm Christine Niles. Today is September 7th, 2025. Here are this week's top stories. The Church has two new young saints. On Sunday, Pope Leo canonized Saints Pier Giorgio Frassati and Carlo Acutis, two young men who exemplified holiness and loved the Holy Eucharist. Frassati lived in the early 20th century and was known as a manly saint who served the poor and took part in numerous church associations. Acutis lived more recently, devoting his time to creating a website on Eucharistic miracles. Both died young, uniting their sufferings to Christ on the cross and dying holy deaths. Pope Leo said at Mass, "Dear friends, Saints Pier Giorgio Frassati and Carlo Acutis are an invitation to all of us, especially young people, not to squander our lives, but to direct them upwards and make them masterpieces." The weekend, however, was marked by controversy as Rome welcomed its first ever LGBT pilgrimage. The entourage was hosted by Italian group The Tent of Jonathan, one among dozens of different groups who had asked permission to make the pilgrimage. One pilgrim sported claw-like rainbow-colored nails, while another wore an obscenely worded backpack reading, "F the rules." While Pope Leo offered a special Jubilee audience Saturday, he made no mention of the LGBT group, and he did not meet with them, although he did meet with other groups. Pope Leo has condemned the homosexual lifestyle, and he has affirmed that marriage is only between a man and a woman. And in Congress, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. battled it out with senators over America's health. The fiery 3-hour showdown Thursday between the Senate Finance Committee and the head of Health and Human Services included tense exchanges with Democrats, including Senator Ron Wyden.
I hope that you will tell the American people how many preventable child deaths are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I got a reply? Or Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening? Today, for the first time in 20 years, we learned that infant mortality has increased in our country. It's not because I came in here. It's because of what happened during the Biden administration that we're going to end.
RFK also dropped truth bombs about COVID.
Do you believe COVID-19 was politicized?
Yeah, the whole process was politicized. Senator, I mean, we were lied to about everything. We were lied to about natural immunity. We were lied to about, we were told again and again the vaccines would prevent transmission, they prevent infection. It wasn't true. They knew it from the start it wasn't true because that's what the animal studies and the clinical trials showed. We were told that there was science behind cloth masks. The CDC allowed the teachers union to write the order closing our schools, which hurt working people all over the country, and then pretend it was science-based.
He vowed to totally reform the organ procurement industry.
We have mounted a major investigation of misconduct, of illegal behavior, of organ harvesting, of living people, of line skipping, of favoritism, of all kinds of scandalous behavior inside the organ procurement organizations. We have already ended the contract, terminated the contract to the sole source provider. We are reorganizing the entire industry so that this can never happen again.
He's also reviewing the abortion pill and its harms to women.
We're getting data in all the time, new data that we're reviewing. And we know that during the Biden administration, they actually twisted the data to bury one of the safety signals with a very high safety signal, around 11%. So we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore.
This comes a week after 4 top-level staffers at the Centers for Disease Control quit in protest against RFK. Among them was Biden's vaccine chief, Dimitri Daskalakis, an openly gay Satanist who pushed the untested COVID vax while forcing mask mandates and lockdowns. Dr. Robert Malone, an inventor of mRNA vaccines, retweeted, "The CDC is running an actual death cult." Yes, really. Going on to note the CDC's centuries-long push for population control, eugenics, and sterilization. In related news, Florida is banning all vaccine mandates. State Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo made the announcement Wednesday.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right.
This would make Florida the very first state to eradicate vaccine mandates. The announcement was immediately met with criticism from pro-vaccine groups claiming it would harm children. Dr. Ladapo has been warning about the COVID shot for years.
These vaccines have DNA in them. Everyone knows what DNA is. They're contaminated with DNA, and that's not necessarily a big deal. But it's a problem with these vaccines because the DNA hangs on with the mRNA and goes into people's cells. So this is a completely different risk analysis than other products that have had DNA. These vaccines are honestly, they're the antichrist of all products.
A British leader is warning of tyranny in the UK. During a trip to the US this week, Nigel Farage, head of Reform UK, testified before Congress Wednesday about loss of freedom in Britain.
Graham Linehan, the comedic writer, and he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona, and months later he arrives at Heathrow Airport to be met by 5 armed police. Armed police, not a big deal in the USA, a very big deal in the United Kingdom. 5 of them. And he was arrested and taken away for questioning. He's not even a British citizen. He's an Irish citizen. This could happen to any American man or woman that goes to Heathrow that has said things online that the British government and British police don't like. It is a potentially big threat to tech bosses, to many, many others.
The story is causing outrage all over the world.
Dragged to a cell, interrogated, and then detained for 16 hours, I understand, only released when a nurse discovered his blood pressure was so high, he had to immediately go to A&E. I mean, it's hard to ignore that. I think that story, that overreach, that example of overzealous policing of tweets, I think that's cut through. Nigel mentioned it in Congress today. I think around the world, I've been getting calls from the press in Sweden, in Germany, in the United States, asking me about this. I mean, it's really cut through. I think people have realized, they've woken up now to the fact, if they weren't aware of it before, that you can get into all kinds of difficulty in Starmer's Britain just for things you've said on social media.
Linehan is defiant, showing up to court this week like this.
You have a few words ahead of today's appearance. These guys are, well, I'm never going to say anything.
The DOJ is considering banning gun ownership by transgenders. This comes after the August 27th shooting by transgender Robin Westman on Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which left an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old dead and 21 others wounded. A DOJ official said they want to, quote, ensure that mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms while they are unstable and unwell. Westman's shooting is the latest in a long string of transgender shooters. Catholic conservative Matt Walsh tweeted, "If I walked into a gun shop in a state of mental confusion and declared that I was Genghis Khan, obviously they shouldn't sell me a firearm. Selling a gun to someone who was actively in the middle of a psychotic break would be reckless in the extreme. Trans people are even more deluded than a man who thinks he's Genghis Khan, so I would support this move. One of the girls shot is still clinging to life. 12-year-old Sophia Forchas was shot in the head by Westman. Part of her skull has been removed in order to relieve swelling in her brain. Her neurosurgeon, Dr. Walt Galicic, announced that she remains in critical condition, but is showing signs of hope.
I noticed her blue nail polish and her curly hair, and I opened her eyes, and she was bilaterally fixed and dilated, which means that her pressure in her brain was very high. And if you had told me at this juncture 10 days later that we'd be standing here with any ray of hope, I would have said it would take a miracle.
Please pray for her recovery. And in Gaza, President Trump is getting blasted for plans to turn the region into the Riviera of the Middle East. A leaked 38-page document titled Great Trust envisions a U.S.-run trusteeship for 10 years, building luxury real estate and high-tech smart cities. Gaza, now 80 to 90% destroyed, would be rebuilt, bringing in massive profit to investors while incentivizing Palestinians to leave, offering them each $5,000 along with subsidies for food and rent. Most would not be allowed to return. Those who choose to stay will be sealed in zones. Critics are calling this ethnic cleansing under another name. Meanwhile, Israelis continue to gather in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with tens of thousands gathering Saturday in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa. Hostages' families spoke out, including released hostage Ilana Gutsufsky, who said, "While Matan and the hostages rot in the darkness, the prime minister clings to his throne." This comes after Netanyahu rejected a ceasefire he himself had authored, which would have released half of the living hostages, while the rest would be released later. It's believed only 20 living hostages remain, while many of the others may have accidentally been killed by Israeli strikes. In early August, 600 Israeli senior security officials, including members of Mossad, Israel's intelligence community, sent a letter to Trump demanding an immediate end to the war. This follows on letters in April signed by 250 former Mossad and 200 reserve medical officers demanding the same, insisting, quote, "The sanctity of life, Mr. Prime Minister, takes precedence over God of revenge." At the Sunday Angelus, Pope Leo again urged peace. To the intercession of the saints and the Virgin Mary, we entrust our unceasing prayer for peace, especially in the Holy Land and Ukraine, and in every other land bloodstained by war. That is this week's Catholic News Roundup. Please visit stellamaris.media and sign up to our email list for the latest news and updates. It's totally free. Please help us to spread the truth by sharing our content, and if you're able to give a small donation, we would so appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and may God bless your week. I'm Christine Niles.